So tea grows well where any camellias grow, zone 7 or higher. They can be grown in colder climates for protection, but even in zone 7, like where we are here in the Piedmont in North Carolina, we like to have certain protections. So one of the first things to consider when we're talking about protections is the sunlight. We get cold winters and we get hot summers. We like to have about 30 to 50% shade. So that's hours per day, but it's not just any hours per day. We like to have morning shade in the winter, so an evergreen like pine trees, because that helps to prevent burn or damage to the leaves. When it's really cold and the sun comes up, that sudden warmth and heat can actually almost burn the leaves, and that leaves them more vulnerable. The other time that we like to have shade is in the mid to late afternoon. We get a lot of heat here in the summer. Afternoon shade reduces the heat stress on the plants, so it cuts back on watering. So it's good for the plants, and then it's also less stress for the people, especially when you're out there working in the garden in the summer. Tea is camellias are generally, they're a natural understory plant, and they like to grow at like the edges of forests, so they're not in the wild mostly. They do well in those conditions, but if they are in full shade, they just grow much more slowly, and they're more susceptible to scale. In my experience, in a deep shade, we actually see more scale. Scale is an insect that is very small, and it's under the leaves. It's very common in camellias to hear about tea scale. It makes the top of the leaf, you see a lot of little yellow spots. We'll do another section on problems with your tea plants, but just to let you know that in deep shade they're a little bit more susceptible to that, but they will grow. If you just want to have a tea plant, it'll be fine, but you just have to watch it a little bit. As you start going to cooler zones, we start pushing the limits of where Camellia sinensis will thrive. You can get it to grow in colder temperatures, but there are certain sort of things that you may need to do to encourage it or to protect it from damage. You know, in a residential setting, or even in a larger farm or field, you can use trees as protection. They can provide some protection and keep it from getting quite as cold near the zone. The walls of a house can provide protection against cold winds. They also can provide protection from early morning sun. What you really have to worry about is not so much in those climates, you know, as long as the ground isn't freezing hard, the plants usually survive. It's the new growth that will be damaged by an early frost or freeze, a late freeze. So in spring, if your new growth is started and then you get a freeze, that's going to damage the plant and also mess up your first flush harvest.